Everybody joining here with Lone Oak Survival. So here I'm at Camp Half-Assed, as I call it, because my half-assed Wikiup here. Never completed, but it is what it is. So to celebrate the new spring arrival up here in the UP, finally I can actually see some bare ground here and there. And the snow and ice is actually finally going away, thank God. It's been such a long time in my mind. But to celebrate this, I decided we're going to do our first overnight here at our first campsite. Not too terribly far, so you guys might hear my kids and my goats and whatnot in the background, but you know, it's at least about 75 yards into the woods or so. And anyways, so kind of in my mind, I want to do somewhat of a challenging thing anyways. So right now it is 4:36, and we got roughly about 2.5-ish hands of daylight left in the woods. So I gotta get hustling, but what we're gonna do is get the camp set up, cut some firewood, make some dinner, tips and tricks like always in my videos along the way, guys. So without further ado, here we go. We're going to do our first overnighter. Alright, ladies and gents, so in order to have somewhat of a challenge, like I mentioned with the time of hands here, we only got about 2.5 hands before nightfall hits. I want to kind of go over and show you guys what I brought along with equipment. So obviously I have the jet sled, my sweatshirt, wool hat, gloves, axe, my 72-hour bag, survival bag, whatever you call it, Arcturus all-weather space blanket, an extra tarp with my wool blankets inside of it, in a bucket where I cleaned out all that trapping supplies and equipment I have in there, and I replaced it with some stuff in there. I'll go over that later, and my snowshoes, because it is shallow in some spots with ice and snow. Others it's pretty deep. So I figured, hey, why not just bring the snowshoes anyways? So that is what it is. Gonna clean this out, guys. I have actually made camp out here various times throughout the weeks, but this is gonna be the first time I did an overnighter on this property. So gonna clean this up a little bit and set up my camp inside of here. Alright, everybody, so this is kind of how I set it up. As you guys see in that short clip, I used the jet sled I have as my bed base right here. I'm going to try that out tonight. Then I got a gray wool blanket on top of that. And I got my actual wool blanket here. Got my sweatshirt and gloves right there. And I got my day bag, or 72-hour bag, whatever you want to call it, on top of the garbage bag I had in the bottom of it. Kind of keep it off the ground and dry. That's chilling over there. And then I have the oil lamp there from my green bucket here. So what I think I'm going to do, because I have a very limited time to actually get stuff around, I'm probably going to spruce up the roof a little bit, but I'm going to mostly focus on the sides here. So I want to close this off here and maybe close off the front a little bit too. Right now the wind's coming right at me from this open side, so just throwing a tarp up right there is one, going to save time, energy, and effort, and it's going to do me a lot of good because I can stop that convective breeze from hitting me, thus cooling me down. So here we go. Alright, guys, so in case you're wondering what I brought with me inside this bucket, I got a rag. It's dirty because I just used it to dry off the bottom of the sled that I'm sitting on right now. Got some pancake mix for the morning. Gonna make some breakfast bonnets. Mess kit. Lamp oil. Some pepper and garlic. Some fish. C-clamp that kind of works as my tripod, if you will. And some wash rags and dry rag for my mess kit. So, nothing too fancy. And not a whole lot of stuff that's going to really hinder any challenge or not. But just stuff that's kind of useful, honestly, and we'll kind of go over this stuff as we get along. Okay, so the situation at hand is I'm trying to close off this triangle-shaped area with my rectangle tarp. So I'm going to try to do that, give you guys like an inside shot. It might take me a little bit, but I'll speed it up in the video so you guys can actually just see it in a few seconds. Alright, ladies and gents, this is kind of what we wound up with. Not the best tarp to use for this, and I'm not really happy with how this is set up. So I might dink around with this a little more as time goes on, but I need to get some firewood around. Now, as you guys can see, kind of some big gaps here. I could take some balsamor fir balms and go and plug up these holes, or even just kick some snow up and build like a snow wall. Something, I'll probably do something with that. But, notice this log here. Obviously, okay, survival, you can say, is a lazy person's game. Could I take time, find the right diameter sticks, and put them in the holes and make little tent stakes and whatnot? Yeah, I could, if I wanted to use that log for firewood, which I might do. It really depends. I do got a healthy amount in there that I still got to split up. And I do have some over in this old wood pile, too. But if I decide to do that, then I'll make some stakes. But it's kind of really about using the resources on hand, so you don't have to expend that time and effort and energy making something if you don't have to. So think of it what you will. But it does block a lot of the area in itself, so pretty happy with it. I might add some cross poles on the inside, just kind of help firm that up a little bit. But now I'm going to get some more pine bombs and work on that side. But after I put the all-weather space blanket on the inside of this. Alright, so I set up the Mylar tarp, is essentially what it is. Space blanket, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't do too bad of a job. I mean, it definitely blocks the wind behind me all the way down the bed. I have to figure out something to do with this corner down this way. Oh, sorry, I can't see. Oh, down here. And I might just stake that down and move my wood pile over this way a little bit. But it does a pretty good job of shielding me from the wind. And I'm hoping with the fire in front of me and possibly some of this breeze blowing the heat towards me, or even the fire's heat radiating towards me, this Mylar blanket here will reflect down onto me while I sleep. And I figure, you know what, with it being there and not really secured with more than a couple pieces of string on some sticks, I can sit there and I can just undo those real quick and wrap up into it like a burrito and stay warm that way. So our shelter, for the most part, I hate saying it like this, but for the most part is pretty well established right now. Again, the premises of this is that in a way you're limited on time, so you have to kind of really think, okay, do I want to do it this way? Do I want to monkey with a shelter, find some pine bombs, cut a bunch of those down, make sure that it's really watertight and windproof, or do I just want to use what I have on hand and then still tackle other problems that I can occur with? Now, firewood, really not an issue where I am, obviously, because there's a bunch of dead pine trees everywhere and stuff like that. But, you know, it is still a problem to stay warm, so it's starting to get a little cold out already, and it's only been maybe like a half hour since I started this video series here. So I'm going to go ahead and start a fire, guys, so it's going to be kind of fun to do. Alright, guys, so real quick, I was going to go on the hunt for some firewood here. Again, follow the whole pencil lead, pencil size, thumb size, and greater methodology here. But real quick, before you even set out on your adventure, I want you guys to think about something. So, when you wander in the woods, even if you plan on staying overnight or not, if you find yourself in a situation where you've become lost and now you're looking for a campsite, think of the 4Ws when you're thinking about a campsite. And that, in no particular order, is wood, wind, water, Widowmakers. Okay, so let's cover the first one. Wood. Is there enough wood laying around where you can have a sustainable fire all night long? Now, granted, most people think, oh, this little armful of wood's going to work great for me. Generally, when you get enough wood where you think it's comfortable enough, especially in winter or cold environments, get 10 times that. Then it's going to last you all night and then some. So, kind of words of wisdom there. Wind. You got to pay attention to factors that are going to affect this, especially if you're up in the mountains or whatever, but I'm going to use my environment specifically. So, I'm in the middle of the woods, but there is a field nearby. And that's generally where the wind is blowing from right now. So, I got to kind of keep that in mind. In general, where my tarps are, my shelter, is pretty much where the wind direction does come from. I know that from experience. But you do not want that convective breeze on you at all, especially when you're out and around, walking around, maybe getting cold through sweat and whatnot. And then you have to sit down and cool off, and then that wind hits you. So you gotta pay attention to wind direction and stuff that might affect it, like trees being in the way, or a hilltop, or whatever it's gonna be, right? So next would be water. Is there water nearby that you can use, or utilize, excuse me, in order to boil the water and then be able to drink it. Well, right now still that's not really a big deal because I still have snow all around me. Now, granted, with snow, it's kind of just my finicky ass saying this, but I like to come up with snow instead of just scooping it right off the ground. I kind of look around, is there any droppings or urination or rabbit or squirrel or tracks period around this area? Because you gotta kind of be careful with that, because sometimes you might just scoop some stuff and you're getting a little extra, if you know what I mean. So I like to kind of remove the first inch or so of ice and snow, see what's around it, then kind of scoop it up and then take it with me, obviously. So the last one, Widowmakers. When you're looking at a campsite, you want to make sure there's no dead, tall, standing trees or just dead trees nearby where it might fall down on you in the middle of the night and kill you. So even something that looks really small and insignificant, say like a very tippy top of some kind of maple tree or whatever that's dead, you know, a small branch, you're like, it wouldn't hurt me. Well, coming down with force and speed, physics says otherwise. So keep that in mind. Now, another thing, though, that I want to point out, too, when you decide to leave your campsite in search of resources, whatever the resource may be, right? Or to scout out the area, period. What you want to do is you want to take a compass with you, okay? And if you have the luxury of having items with you, a notepad and a pencil, if not, some kind of long stick about, I don't know, probably 2-foot stick or so to carve notches in. And that's going to be your pace count method right there, okay? So, say I'm out here and I have some kind of material I can wave above my campsite, like that orange flag I always carry with me anyways. You can raise it up high in a tree that's in a clearing, and as long as you can see that, you're good to go if you don't have a compass. But if you do have a compass, you can whip that puppy out and you can go, okay, hey, I'm going to go off in this direction. There's say a aspen tree over there against these pines, so it kind of sticks out. You can sit there, shoot your azimuth, travel there, do your pace count, whatever pace count is, mark it down, write, you know, the degree marked, walked, pace counts is, and all this stuff like that. So kind of keep that in mind, because why do I bring up the compass? Well, there's this thing called wood shock. All right, so when you're out about in the forest, and I don't care if you have 30 years experience in the forest or if you're a complete novice, this is your first day in the woods, it can happen to anybody. Okay, at any time when you're in the woods, you're kind of walking around, especially if there's no visual aids like tall hills or significant landmarks around, or if you're not even paying attention to where the sun is in the sky when you first began your journey, you can get turned around quite easily because every tree starts looking the same and your trail looks starting to look the same. I mean, the snow's gonna help you, obviously, but if there is no snow, definitely more so screwed. So kind of put that in your mind, keep it for what it is, and yeah, just follow some advice. Okay, so continuing forth with this video, if you guys have some kind of container with you, which more likely if you're on a day hike, you have some kind of backpack with you, I'd recommend not only the previous section of this video's advice, but taking that backpack and emptying it out at your campsite. Make sure it's safe, blah, blah, blah. But container to collect wood for a fire definitely helps out. So instead of carrying the wood with you and walking through the woods or whatever, you can throw it in a bucket or a backpack and you're good to go there. Or if you have like some kind of like a schmog, like a scarf or some kind, you know, it'll do you good for collecting firewood as well. So I'm going to fill this bucket up and then I'm going to get a fire started. Alright guys, so sorry if you hear my kids in the background. That's the bucket that I filled it with all that nice dry pine. Problem being, you guys can hear the ground's pretty wet. Even there it looks like it's wet. So I have to create a base for our fire. I'm going to have to fix up the reflective wall I built too, so I'm going to do those two fun projects. Alright everybody, so when I'm out looking for a tree to cut down for not only a fire lay or fire base, what I like to do is also find one that's going to work for my intended purposes of a reflective wall, which this maple tree right here will work just fine. I'm okay with cutting this down because it is doomed to thrive. Right here where it's located at, it's blocked by pine trees on all sides. It's not going to get really any sun. I'm actually surprised it grew like this in the first place. So, in a way, I'm doing my forest a favor by getting rid of competition for some of these trees, allowing more undergrowth to grow in the first place. But also, I'm doing myself a favor by getting a resource right here that's going to be pretty much a one-stop shop, thus creating less wear and tear on your equipment, and keeping the blade of your saw sharper for longer. So, that being that, I'm going to cut this one down. And when you're cutting something like this, guys, it would behoove you to kind of pull a little bit on this so it frees up the blade so it's not getting stuck. There we go. A little bit of bark left. Wham bam, thank you ma'am. And that's how we do it. Alright folks, anytime I'm out in the wilderness and I'm looking to build anything for whatever reason I'm doing it for, I like to use some kind of tool as a measuring device. So in this case I'm using my folding saw, obviously deployed. That way I can actually use this, and I already measured out the area down here for my actual fire base. And I can use this to measure out how long I need the logs to be in order to fit inside the fire base. Along with that, I'm probably going to go ahead and use the thicker portions of this tree for my reflective wall, obviously, and the thinner portions for the actual fire base so I can get my fire off that moist ground there. So, that being that, I'd also like to point out that instead of sitting outside your shelter in the convective breeze, getting cool and whatnot, because it is starting to drop pretty good in temperature out there, why don't you just bring your projects inside if you can, and actually just go ahead and sit down. Instead of sitting there hunched over or leaning over or anything like that, possibly suffering a strain to your back muscles or whatever's going to be, you can actually just sit down, be all relaxed, do your work inside. Now, however, though, do not try to cut anything inside the deadly triangle, which is pretty much anything on the inside of your legs here, obviously. So you want to kind of get it away from you, a good maybe 5, 6, 7 inches, and cut away from there. So, that being said, I'm going to get going on this. In real time, this is taking forever, setting up the camera, taking all these shots and whatnot, and doing some extra takes if I don't like the first one or whatever, in order to fix the film. But in real time, if I wasn't doing this, I already have my stuff already done. So, but it is what it is. I want to educate people and help them improve their bushcraft skills. So, gonna get going on this, guys, and then I'm gonna actually start the fire next. It's a good start to the back. I'm going to have to cut down at least 2, maybe 3 different saplings for the front here. Alright, ladies and gents, so I finally got that all done and figured out. Yeah, let's see when I move the camera over there. So I did find some dead plant tops over by the eastern white pine I was getting all these dead branches from. But I did pack with me some fat wood that I harvested this past winter. So good to say that, past winter. Oh, thank God. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and shave off some of this fat wood, and I'm going to use that in a ferrocene rod to start this fire. Just, pretty much for kicks. I do have a lighter with the duct tape on it. You know, that'd be fun too. But, you know, for old time's sakes, I think a ferrocene rod is in order. Plus, I think out of all the combinations to start a fire, ferrocene rod and fat wood are my favorite. Because as you guys might have seen in my channel, done a few videos where I've shown you guys, hey, even with both being wet, as long as you have something dry to wipe off the ferrocene rod with. So like, you know, rag or shirt or whatever, you know, or even just your pant leg while it's still moist. Say it's raining out, it'll still go. You know, it'll still produce fire or a spark, and then the fat wood that might be wet even will still have enough oil in it to give you a good flame. And as long as your tinder is dry, you'll be good to go. So, kind of starting around this stick here. Maybe a little bit more fat wood here, but definitely love the combination. Now there is a video idea I want to do, and it's kind of already out there, but there's a well, I shouldn't say there's a multiple dead pine trees standing around or even tipped over. I think there's actually one over here that's a balsam fir. I am kind of curious to see if the balsam fir actually has a root ball, essentially, that will contain a lot of fat wood in it. So something that's going to happen later on, hopefully. I'll have time to do it, and we'll get to it. So that should be more than enough to start a fire, especially with fat wood. There's enough fine trimmings in here. So I'm going to get that going for us. Alright guys, as you can see here, here's the reflective wall, the base for my fire with the green sticks, and trying to make sure nothing's going to be in my way. It might be though, so get some of that material on there. Huh, started the fire below. Interesting. Well, some of my fat wood did fall down in there. We'll see if that actually continues to grow. Remember, friends, there's no such thing as mistakes, just happy accidents. Rest in peace, Bob Ross. Rest in peace. Alright, so I mean, I guess that worked out, unintended, but it worked out. So what happened was some of my fat wood fell down in between the cracks in the fire base, and it just kind of lit on fire anyway, so whatever. Works for me. Alright folks, let's talk about ferrocene rods real quick. So this is a new ferrocene rod, like I stated, and obviously it didn't come with a handle, so I threw on some 1-inch duct tape on there, pretty thick. How I like to see people hold ferrocene rods, and I know different schools say different things, but what I like to see is basically your thumb crossed over and touching your middle finger, about on the middle joint there, and your index finger supporting the actual rod. Now the reason why that is because you can still have access to the whole rod in order to get all that material off when you strike it. Along with that, it's actually supported. Now granted, if another method works better for you, like, you know, the whole, let me just show you, holding this out and kind of getting the 45 and putting on your boot and doing this, by all means do it. I mean, I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I'm not saying one way is incorrect and the other one is correct. But from my personal standpoint, what this does, especially for people who aren't always used to using ferrocene rods and whatnot, what this will do, this method right here, is support the rod. So when you're doing it this way, or you're pushing with a knife, either or, you're having the support it, so you're not getting those chatter bumps in there. You're not having those speed bumps, those little waves that develop in the ferrocene rod when somebody uses unequal pressure on it, and the actual rod will bounce on the back of your knife or the knife spine, creating those. So it will alleviate that to a certain extent. No way is actually perfect, but that's my 2-second spiel there for that. Take it for what you will. Alright everybody, so for dinner I'm planning on having some quick brown rice, mixed vegetables, and some salmon, and seasoning it with some pepper and garlic. But to get there, we're getting our fire going to get established, mostly down to embers, because you don't need an open flame to cook. I'm going to throw down my white, cool-looking tablecloth right there. Hopefully makes it a little more appetizing, more professional to, you know, eat and watch. So, we're going to do that. But first, in a serious manner, guys, if you live in predator country, or you're camping in predator country, which, you know, up here there's wolves, mountain lions, bears, black bears, follow the expert's advice for the love of God. go make another little fire, for example, your cook fire. Go make that at least 100 yards away from where you're actually sleeping at. Do your food prep, your cooking, your eating, and your washing of your utensils and whatnot there. And after you're done eating and cleaning up and whatnot, put all your stuff in a bear bucket or a bear bag. Hang that sucker up in a tree at least 12 foot high, and I say 8 foot away from the trunk. That way the bear cannot get to it, and it distracts them from coming to your sleeping area. So, that being said, I do understand the risks involved with what I'm doing. I am armed. I do have protection, and actually do have an alarm system around my campsite. Basically, it's just fishing line with little bells on them. So, that's all set up and good to go. That being said, also, as far as I can tell, there's never been really issues with black bears up here, and I've been patrolling my property in a big square pattern, and I have not seen any sign of bear or cougar or wolf or anything like that on my property thus far, and I'm willing to take the risks and responsibility upon myself. So, that being said, let's get back to cooking dinner, shall we? So, what I have to use is this Coleman Max cook set, guys. For the life of me, I've been trying to find one for my oldest son. I don't think they make these anymore. I could be wrong, but I don't think they do. I love it because it comes with 2 saucepans. This is like a 16 ounce, 8 ounce. It's big enough so you can store a couple washcloths in here as well. One for washing and one for drying. I have 2 full of spoons in here, and I can throw 2 of these little spice containers in here as well. This is the 16 ounce pot, and this is the 24 ounce pot. So, I find it really cool. We'll take a closer look at this later on after dinner. So, like I said, we're going to make some soup. So, I'm probably going to go ahead and use probably a 16 ouncer. I'm not really that hungry, and there's only one of me. So, we'll go ahead and put all that stuff back in there. Bear with me 1 second, guys. So, we need some water as well. Hopefully don't knock the camera over while I grab this. Sorry if I do. Ooh, maybe not. Sweetness. Alright. Got some water in here. Now, granted, I like to try to pack at least a pound of some kind of dry cook rice. Just it's really handy to have on hand. Granted, I like to have some kind of rice with me because it's super handy, especially I think it's called minute rice, which is this is what it is. It's actually a brown rice, so it's a little bit healthier for you than regular rice. And yes, even with all these bags on, a bear can still smell this food, so keep that in mind. And I love how many overnight channels or videos I see where people are just like cooking meat and whatnot, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. That seems a little sketchy to me, but, you know, hey, I'm out here doing the same thing, so can't really criticize them too hard, can I? Now, granted, I don't know if I can fit all this salmon in here. Adding some pink wild-caught salmon, so, yeah, that should be. Save some for tomorrow. Add our water. And, well, I was going to use the titanium spoon spork combo there, my spork, I guess, if you will, in my pouch there, but at risk of knocking the camera around, I'm just going to use this spoon I folded up. So, that was a weird sound. Anyways. So what I like to actually spice my dinner up with, if you will, is this thing right here. Now granted, I'm not throwing brands around or anything like that, but it's a little pepper container. It's Clover Valley black pepper container. It's a 3-ounce one. I actually took 2/3 of the pepper out, and I just dumped a crap ton of garlic in here and mixed it together by taking a butter knife and spinning it around and just shaking it like this. That way you have a nice combination of garlic and black pepper, which is my 2 favorite spices to add to stuff besides turmeric, which actually I do have some here. And it's just nice to have because you can add a little pizzazz to your food. It's probably more than enough, honestly. But I like the size of it too, because it's a hefty amount, and it barely takes up any room. I mean, compared to my hand, as you guys can see, not very big. So, anyways, gonna mix this all up. And another reason why I like this Coleman set so much is because, kind of like a lot with modern sets, you can use the fry pan, obviously with the smaller pan here, or pot, excuse me. And you can set that somewhere near the fire or on the fire. And you can let it cook to your heart's content. Right, there's a pretty level spot. Alright guys, I'm going to set this on the fire and let her cook. Alright ladies and gents, so while dinner's cooking, so keep in mind the 16-ounce pot is over there, excuse me. What this cooking set comes with is the 24-ounce pot here, as you guys can see, the 16-ounce frying pan, and the 8-ounce frying pan. I got this back when I was 21, I believe, 21, 20, something like that. So I've had this entire time, so 10, 11 years now, and I love this. This has been through with me all seasons, all sorts of weather, all sorts of climates. None the worse for wear at all. The only modification I've done to this whole thing throughout the entire years I have had it, so you guys notice this hole here and the hole over there. I did that simply because then I could take this piece of wire, as you guys can see, and I can actually make this into a hanging pot. So that way I can put it over a fire and I can either make some kind of stew or whatever without having to set it next to a fire or whatever. And I can actually cook food more thoroughly, more evenly and whatnot inside of it. But it does come with the pots, like I said, and the pans here, and this mesh bag. So really nice. It does, again, have room to set these 2 little spice containers of garlic and turmeric in here. I mean, this doesn't come with it, obviously. And I can bend 2 spoons and put it in there as well. And yeah, so it's a neat little system. I like it. Very rugged and durable. If you guys ever find these floating around on the internet, again, it's a Coleman Max. I'd pick it up. It's outstanding, honestly. So that's my piece about that. Well, folks, I'm definitely enjoying myself out here. And sweetie, if you're watching this, thank you for giving me a break from the kids. You're a brave woman. But in a serious manner, guys, I am having a really good time out here, and why I like doing simple overnighters isn't really to test your skill sets. I see that'd be more of like a 2-3 night system. But I like it because, you know, the solidarity. You can come out here, kind of forget the world's problems right now with the supply chain and the war and everything crazy going on geopolitically and politically from whatever country you're from, honestly. You just take time in nature and you can just sit here in complete silence and just observe the world as is. And just kind of let it all out, just relax. Get your mind reoriented, centered, refocused for whatever you have to do in life. It's just it's a great escape, honestly. And I wish more people would take part in this. But, you know, hopefully in time they will. So, anyways, guys, I'm gonna eat my food here. Probably later on, I'm going to light my lantern I got hanging up here. Maybe read a book for a little bit, smoke some tobacco, and hit the hay. So, might film that, might not. I don't know. Either way, I'll see you guys in the morning. And yeah, thanks for watching. At least part 1 here. Morning, folks. So, last night went okay. Albeit it was cold. Got cold, for sure. But, wasn't like freezing and shivering cold. I mean, I have a nice thick wool blanket to cover up in. And then I have the wool blanket underneath. Plus my sweatshirt, my hat, my gloves. And I do have some, sweatpants underneath my blue jeans here. So, wasn't terribly cold. I did switch my socks out from the socks I was wearing all day to some clean socks. And I was fine, like I said, just a smidge cold, but nothing bad. I did move the bed a little bit closer in the middle of the night, closer to the fire. Had to be kind of careful though, because obviously this jet sled is plastic, so but it was okay. I think the other thing I'd really change, honestly, is definitely not stay in a Wikiup like this with rectangle tarps. I'd probably honestly just go for a plow point shelter next time. If I did stay in something like this again, though, I would probably take this Arcturus blanket and I'd probably drop her down and pretty much do like a lean-to situation. That way, more of the heat would have been caught and reflected back towards my body. But other than that, it was all right. It wasn't terrible. Nothing bothered me during the night either. So, just me and the trees and the occasional owl. That was about it. So, anyways, this morning I'm going to fix the fire up for us, and going to be super lazy about it, though. I'm going to use some modern techniques here, and I'm going to use a lighter with some duct tape and get a fire going, and probably get some kind of tea, maybe coffee, one of the two, and maybe breakfast bonnet or two, and call it good from there, guys. Alright, folks, so there's two methods really with a lighter and duct tape that you can use. You can use just a big chunk of duct tape, glue side up, and use a ferrocene rod because the glue is what's flammable and you can catch the big sparks there and let on fire. Or even with the sparks and this rolled up like a cigar shape, this piece of tape, you can use ferrocene rod either way. With a lighter, it doesn't really matter. I do recommend using the cigar shape with a lighter because, well, it's kind of like a match at that point in time. So, oops, that fell. Just kind of roll around up. And what I do for length and thickness, it really depends on what's happening. If it's a extreme downpour and I have to get a fire going right now, yeah, I'm going to want to go for that 4 to 5 inch length by, say, ½ inch to an inch thickness of the cigar shape with duct tape on it, right? That way you have all that duct tape burning right there. It's going to catch your tinder and your smaller fuel on fire, no problem. Now, what I do to add duct tape to my lighters, if people are curious, like how much should I add? Is it like, half the roll, whole row, quarter, whatever? What I personally do, and I find the best to do, is even in segments, you can do this on your lighter, your ferrocene rod, a stick, whatever you want to use. I like to use my arm as measurements. As you guys know, I like measurements. So I go from my fingertip here all the way to my shoulder on the inside or outside, whichever. Usually on the inside because you can grab it. And I use that, and then I'll wrap it around my lighter or my ferrocene rod, whatever it's going to be. Because to me, I find that to be a hefty amount of duct tape. Because you really don't need too much, especially in these nice fair conditions like we're seeing right now, to start a fire. You really don't. So other than that, I'm going to stop gabbing about this, and I'm going to set this up and start the fire. So, hopefully you guys can see this. So, I decided I'm just going to combine all the things together, just kind of really for giggles. Going pretty good. So you guys can see that method doesn't work too bad, and it's only burnt maybe quarter of the mast from where I can see, and you guys can't see it, but from right here I can see a big clump of the duct tape still remaining. So alright, I'm going to let that get established, guys, and then we're going to set up to make some breakfast. I'm telling you guys, if this property had a creek or a river or a pond, which I actually might make right out here in this meadow, well, if the water table's high enough, this would be a perfect spot, honestly. You got firewood in plethora. You got my favorite tree right here in the whole forest, the eastern white pine. Now, why do I like this? Well, I'll explain when we get back to the camp. But I'm going to look for some healthy needles on this tree. I'm going to take advantage of that situation. Because, like I said, if I'm feeling a little under the weather, first thing I turn to isn't some modern pharmaceutical medicine. Nope. Turn to nature in the first place. And then proceed from there. Alright, folks, so the reason why I turn to the Eastern White Pine Needle Tea so much is because of the qualities that it has with it. And not only that, but it's a plethora in my area as well. But for starters, I mean, it's jam-packed with vitamin C. 4 to 5 times as much as orange, for example. But also it has vitamin A, which is good for your skin, your eyesight, your bone health. Also here I do got a little list. It's not a comprehensive list. I got this from naturalnews.com, so you can go there and you can check her out and get more information about the stuff you wish. But it does help support your immune system, the vitamin C obviously. Relieves bronchial and sinus infections, protects against cold and flu. Really, really good for cold and flu, guys. Really is. Neutralizes against free radicals or cancer cells in your body. Guards against muscle degeneration, eye diseases, nervous system disorders. It can help with those things as well. Word of caution though, if you're into herbal teas and getting out there and just getting started on this, be cautious. You can use a lot of different spruce and fir and pine trees to make tea with, but the yew, ponderosa, and the Norfolk you should avoid. Those are poisonous to you. Also, word of caution with this tea stuff, guys, if you're pregnant or maybe become pregnant or you think you're pregnant, consult your physician, and I'll just say, in general, consult your physician over this stuff first before you listen to some random person on YouTube, because I am not a doctor. I will not pretend to be a doctor on YouTube. But I've been taking this tea for probably 3 years now, about, I'd say a week, probably 4 times a week, maybe more, honestly, probably more. And, you know, my kids take it, they're okay, my wife takes it, she's okay, I'm okay, obviously I'm still alive. I honestly feel better. I don't know what it is exactly, but, you know, I make a cup of tea, this kind of tea, and I just feel, for lack of better terms and description, I just feel brought to life. It's a weird feeling. It's just like, wow, you know, this is really great. Some people have complained about the taste. To those, I say, you know, hey, try like a little teaspoon of honey in there, maybe blackstrap molasses. Blackstrap molasses in itself is good for you. You should look that up as well. And yeah, you know, just kind of all I have to say there. So, oh, a little key tip of advice here too. If you have allergies, what you could do is, if you know a local bee farmer, get localized honey there, and that has been proven to show to help with allergies, at least in your local area. So anyways, guys, back to the whole tea thing. What I like to do, though, is I go find some healthy green needles like this, okay? And one way you can definitely tell it's Eastern White Pine is by the cluster, okay? Eastern White Pine is going to have 5 needles in the cluster, okay? Cluster is this little suction cup looking thing right down there. It's going to have 5 of those. Now, with this, you can either break them apart with your hand, you can crush them up with your knife or your axe, whatever you want to use. Me personally, I choose to carry a quote-unquote kitchen knife. So basically this knife, this little Swiss Army knife I have, this doesn't touch anything like bark of trees. I'm not digging the ground with it. I'm keeping it very clean. Okay, I'm only preparing my food with this. And if I'm going from like vegetables to some kind of meat, you know, I'm going to wash it off or disinfect it with the fire in between. So just kind of keeping that in mind. That's why you always carry 2 knives with you. The other thing I would recommend carrying with you guys is a stainless steel T-ball. Okay, this is like $3-4 depending where you're at. And they're great because they're rugged, they're durable, they're not going to break, they're pretty shiny so you can't really lose them. It's roughly the size of a small egg, so not very big to take. Plus, along with this, you don't have to like dump your needles into your teacup or your canteen cup, whatever you want to call it, and kind of hope you don't swallow the needles. I mean, I have before, and I mean, I just chewed them, ate them, whatever. But I've kind of taken a liking to cutting them up because when you cut up the needles, it actually releases more of what's called ischemic acid in there, and that's what's really good for you. So it kind of keeps all the needles compacted in here. Now, a good way to see, because the rule of thumb is like 10-15 minutes steeping time, depending on the temperature of your water, obviously. But what I find, if you are kind of, well, I don't know if it's really done or not, you can take this T-ball out too. Or if you have like some kind of filter, you can lift them up. And if the needles are going to be like a light green, yellowish, and they're sinking to the bottom, it means they're done. There's nothing else in there for you. Take your T-ball out and enjoy your cup of tea. So that's pine needle tea. I'm going to make that, guys. Get that in the brew, and then I'm going to make some breakfast bonnets. Alright, so another thing to remember, guys, don't boil your needles in the water because that'll destroy the vitamin A and the vitamin C. So go ahead and get that on a boil. Then as soon as it starts boiling, just yank it out. Also be careful. Use like gloves or a stick or something to grab your metal handle so you don't burn yourself. And go ahead and put that brew in there. Like I said, steep for 10-15 minutes or until the needles look something like this. That's when they're done. And when they're sunken to the bottom as well. Now, also, I just want to say real quick, thanks, Mom, for the cool Swiss Army knife. Really like it. And you're lucky to go to Alaska. So anyways, guys, that's kind of how you make pine needle tea. Let that steep for 10 minutes, and I'm going to work on some breakfast. Alright, everybody, so it's time for some breakfast bonnets, or at least what I call breakfast bonnets. Basically, it's a pancake on a stick. Be forewarned, this is kind of a messy process, but it's kind of really fun when you have kids. So, essentially, you're going to take some pancake mix and put it in some kind of saucepan like that. And basically, this is really if you don't have like oil with you or whatever, which I don't have cooking oil with me right now. And basically, you want to get your dough like this, kind of like a Play-Doh consistency. Find yourself a green stick, not resinous stick, so no pine. You really, pine, spruce, or fir. What you want to do is like maple, hickory, oak, beech, whatever. Basically, something that's non-resinous, right? So get that, peel it off to your heart's content, put it over the fire, kind of disinfect it if you wish. And then with your dough, which is really just about adding more dough to it, or pancake mix to the mixture instead of water. So kind of easy. So basically then you just take this and you can either squish it all down and around each other, which is what I kind of prefer to do. That way you just tear it apart in like little chunks. Or you can kind of get fancy with it and do like a spiral method. I've never really had too much luck with the spiral method myself, so I just kind of leave it like this. And then I will slowly rotisserate it on the fire. Kind of slowly turning it around. And basically just like a pancake it. When it's golden brown and whatnot, it's done. So I'm going to put this down here to cook on my Y stick. Or a stick, I should say, really, because my Y stick kind of caught fire. Oops. I'll let that cook slowly. And kind of like any good cooking show, I already pre-made some for you guys to see. This is kind of what the end results look like of it. And it, honest to God, just tastes like a pancake. So if you bring some honey with you, or if you carry some allspice with you, it is what it is. Pretty good. I like it. So anyways, guys.
Hey, Dad, what are you doing?
So anyways, guys, that's pretty much all I got for you today. I mean, it was a fun camp out. It was fun breakfast. We got some pine needle tea going on over here. I already brewed up. Make sure it's not too hot. Always do the test. that's refreshing. And before we go, guys, I want to show you, because it's been seeping for about 15 minutes or so. That's what the pine needles are going to look like. Right there. Just kind of reiterate that fact. So, anyways, guys, thanks for joining me. And as always, stay frosty, prep up, God bless.